Hello everyone, and today we will be comparing two ultra-wide EFS lenses, the EFS 10-22 and the new release 10-18. Alright, so the EFS 10-22 and the EFS 10-18 are two of Canon's EFS ultra wide angle lenses. Now it's quite hard to get a wide angle photo on a APS-C sensor, so Canon has these two ultra wide angle lenses. So how do these two lenses compare? Now first off the bat, we can take a look at the physical build. The EFS 10-22 is just a little bit bigger than the EFS 10-18, just a little bit bigger. However, the EFS 10-22 feels almost about 1.5 times the weight of the EFS 10-18. But then the EFS 10-22 is already a very light lens, so you can imagine how light the new 10-18 is. So other than that, these two are very light lenses, so the weight of these two lenses should not cause any problems for you at all. So the build of these two lenses are both plastic, both have rubberized zoom rings, both have plastic focus rings, except the focus ring of the 10-22 is on the lower side of the lens, whereas the focus ring on the 10-18 is on the upper side of the lens. Now, both of these lenses have a very decent build, except the 10-22 actually has a metal mount, whereas the 10-18 has only a plastic mount. So, given the overall solidity, I give the slight edge to the 10-22 in terms of solidity, mainly because it just feels a little heavier and the plastic feels a little firmer, but the 10-18 is by no means a cheap feeling lens. So the 10-22 takes 77 UV filters. Now the 10-18 takes 67 UV filters, with the 10-22 having a more common filter size. Other than that, the 10-22 has internal focusing. Both these lenses have internal focusing, except the 10-22 has internal zooming, whereas the actual barrel of the lens itself doesn't really change in length when you zoom. But the 10-18, the barrel will change slightly, very slightly, about maybe 1 centimeter, less than 1 centimeter in length when you are zooming in and out. Now, in terms of autofocus, these are two very fast focusing lenses, and plus you're shooting ultra wide, so autofocus should not be an issue at all. But nonetheless, both lenses focus very quickly, snaps right onto your subject. And the 10-22 is a USM focusing motor, whereas the 10-18 is a STM focusing motor. So bear in mind the 10-22 is USM, it has full-time manual control, both lenses have full-time manual control, but the 10-22 gives you actual physical mechanical override over the AF. So you can manual focus with mechanical override. Now the 10-18 is STM, which is only focused by wire, so you can only override the manual focus, the autofocus, into manual focus when you half press the shutter button. So you cannot move the focus of the 10-18 if the lens is detached. So something to keep in mind when you're shooting video. Now, one more thing is the 10-18 has something the 10-22 doesn't have. The 10-18 has image stabilization. So it's always a nice thing to have given its price point. It's a very cheaply priced lens, but it delivers much more than that price. It even has image stabilization, which the much more expensive 10-22 does not have. However, you are on wide angle, so image stabilization should not be a huge deal for you unless you are shooting handheld landscapes and you need some slightly longer handheld exposure. But if you're not doing that, the stabilizer is just something that's nice to have on your lens. So that's pretty much it about the build, and now we will jump into image quality. Alright, now comparing the images side by side, we have the EF 10-18 IS on the left and the 10-22 USM on the right. So let's zoom into the center. Now in the center, they are both pretty much equally sharp. They are both reasonably sharp, not too sharp, but fairly sharp. So when we progress towards the corners, you can see the sharpness of the 10-18 just dies off, whereas the 10-22 it gets quite significantly less sharp, but not as soft as the 10-18. You can see at the corners the 10-18 is simply just getting horribly hazy. Now that is the case for all corners. Now, I do notice though that the 10-22 has much more chromatic aberration at the edges compared to the 10-18. So this is at f4.5. So now let's stop it down to f5.6. So at f5.6, you can see for both the lenses at the center, they don't really get any much sharper. They are pretty much still as sharp. So same case with the edges, the 10-18 just gets much softer compared to the 10-22 when we are approaching the edges, but the 10-18 seems to stay clear of any chromatic aberration, whereas the 10-22 is having quite some heavy fringing at the edges. So at f8, again, they are pretty much just as sharp at f8. At the edges, again, the 10-22 wins the 10-18 at the edges, but at the same time, still keeping its poor performance when it comes to color fringing. When we're comparing these two lenses at the least wide end of the 10-18, which is at 18 mm, now you can see at the center, again, reasonably sharp, pretty much equally sharp. It's really very hard to tell which one's sharper. Now at the edges, they start to even out, especially at 18 mm. As you can see, both lenses get really soft at the edges, getting hazy at the edges, and still you can see that they are both very equal in terms of edge sharpness. So they are pretty much equal at the least wide end. At f8, same case, reasonably sharp in the center, but very soft at the edges. Now let's take a look at some real-world outdoor examples here. Here's me shooting out. So we have the 10-22 on the right, 10-18 on the left again. So let's zoom in again in the center. You can see they are both fairly sharp. The edges, they get softer, slightly softer, but do notice how much more chromatic aberration the 10-22 has. Now it's not too apparent in this image, but down here you can see just how much more the 10-22 fringes at the edges. And we get fairly consistent results at f5.6 and all the way to f8. So again, at f8 you can see the same trend going on, just getting softer at the edges, with the 10-22 having a little more chromatic aberration. So in the real world, you can see that these two lenses are actually very close performers. They pretty much deliver pretty much the same amount of sharpness and image quality. Now, these are two rather similar lenses, if you ask me, both ultra-wide angles for EFS bodies. Now, for me, I'd say the 10-18 is quite a worthy lens, because the 10-18 is very much cheaper than the 10-22. The 10-18 has IS and the 10-22 doesn't, but in terms of image quality, they are actually quite close. So with the 10-22, you're basically just paying a little more for slightly longer range and a slightly larger max aperture, plus maybe slightly better build quality, but still, there we have it. So this has been the comparison of the 10-18 to the 10-22. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Alright, hold on. Before we go anywhere, I want to give a huge shout out to Marco, aka Wolfster, for letting me use his music for this channel's new intro sequence. Now, I just saw the New Zara Productions intro sequence earlier in the video. So the music that comes with it is actually written by Marco himself. So again, a huge thank you, Marco, for letting me use your awesome music in my channel. So of course, visit Marco's YouTube channel. I have the link right here. Marco is a filmmaker and he's also a music producer. So visit his channel where he showcases his music, and also visit his Audio Jungle profile where you can purchase his music to use in your videos. So he's a very talented music producer, very talented man, and he makes great music. So go ahead, check him out. I have the links in the description below as well. So that's pretty much it. Thank you very much. Peace out.